Welcome to the Dental Mastermind podcast, hosted by Dennis Marvel of Fortune Management. Dennis is a managing partner at Fortune Management and is one of the nation's leading authorities in the rapidly changing business of dentistry. On Dental Mastermind, he interprets data and concepts into actionable steps that have the power to transform your practice.
There are some practices, if you look around your neighborhoods, that have no holes in their team right now. What are they doing differently that maybe you're not doing? And if you're that doctor, what could you do to compound that and make it even larger? Because there's a significant amount of opportunity out there in the dental world. We just need enough people to be able to deliver the services that are being demanded. Right now, there's a huge imbalance. And if we can create the kind of culture that we need to attract the right employees, then we can hold these employees to higher standards and higher levels of productivity and actually achieve a much better clinical result by hiring higher quality people. When it comes to how do you go find those people, one of the biggest things in the world I can tell people is to keep your eyes open all the time. I mentioned a little earlier on this podcast a young lady we hired from a coffee shop, and this came from a really funny conversation. It was not my idea. I have to give credit where it's due. I asked a question of the entire team. They knew that their office manager was going to be getting married, moving out of town, so everybody was getting promoted. The financial coordinator was becoming the manager, scheduling coordinator was becoming financial coordinator. We had a new opening. And so I asked them, so who do you know in town that we should go hire? And two of the girls said the same name. And I said, well, who is she? And they said, well, she works in the coffee shop right around the corner. And I said, okay, jump in the car and go talk to her. So literally that afternoon, she came back into the office for a formal interview process with the entire team. Now, I want to stress the doctor was not present at that call. And that's usually the order I like to do things. I want the team to pick the employee and then present that employee to the doctor. Now, it's not a democracy. As the CEO of the business, you have ultimate decision-making authority. You have to decide what's best for you and for the rest of your team. However, if you let them be part of the selection process, first thing that happens is they've actually become part of the team. They're going to accept the responsibility for hiring this person instead of coming back to you and go, this person doesn't have the skills they need to be able to do their job. If they're the ones that made the hiring decision, they're investing emotionally in this person, and then you can support them in that quest. I found it much better to put most of the hiring controls in the hands of employees. One other cultural component that we use at Fortune Management an awful lot is a concept that we call team agreements. And they're basically a set of operating principles on how we're going to be with one another. How do we treat each other? How do we support each other? How do we help each other throughout the day? Because you're not in an easy business. I mean, you work in a business with people that don't necessarily always want to be in your chair, and you're working in a very small, field with very complex tools and very complex procedures, and it's just not easy, not to mention the fact that everybody's stressed. And when you add the stress of everything that's been going on the last 2 years, it just increases exponentially. So we have a set of team agreements in place that defines how we're going to interact with each other on a daily basis. This same team came up with this idea, which I loved. There was one hiring position that they were fulfilling, and they had two candidates they all really liked, and they weren't sure which one they wanted to hire. So what they did is they took out a written copy of their team agreements, and they put them on the table, and they slid them across, and they watched the reactions of the two candidates as they read them. And it was the candidate who went, oh my God, I want to be a part of this. That's the one they ended up hiring. But then they came up with an even better idea. On the first day that person came to work, they literally showed up at their morning huddle with a copy of the team agreements, and they tore them up in front of this young lady and said, we have an all-new team now. We have to start all over again. Do you think that person felt like a member of the team from day one? And there are so many things we can do to make people really feel welcome and contributing members of a team and part of the family before they even start, and we miss that advantage completely. And there's no way to measure how much of an impact that has on your hiring and your retention and all those things, but I can tell you it's much bigger than we have the ability to identify.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dental Mastermind. For more information on upcoming live events in the Northwest region, please visit mastermindnw.com. This has been brought to you by Fortune Management, helping you create an extraordinary practice for an extraordinary life.